now I don't see those cobbles and curbs. I don't hear the blues anymore.
Rough Trade is giving away a third of the first 3 months of the Rough Trade Club plus new music membership exclusively to 101 Part-Time Jobs listeners. Become a member of Rough Trade Club New Music and you'll receive the Rough Trade Album of the Month straight to your door every month on exclusive vinyl pressing with exclusive bonus material. Club members have received exclusive pressings of albums from Sufjan Stevens, Sprints, The Last Dinner Party, Julie Byrne, and Over Mono, just to name a few, this past year alone. Sign up using the promo code CLUB101POD and you'll get the Rough Trade Album of the Month, English Teacher's excellent debut album, This Could Be Texas, on exclusive Galaxy Gold for a third of the usual price. Here's English Teacher on a recent episode of 101.
How many opportunities do you get to write a debut album and have all of this, sport behind us? I don't know. I really like the idea of holding the bar as being like classic songs.
You only get one shot at a debut.
Don't want the album of the month but still want all the benefits? Sign up to the standard tier using Club 101 Pod and you'll still get the first month free. You'll also get free shipping on all orders, 10% off the bar and on secondhand vinyl in store, and exclusive access to sold out Rough Trade events. So don't hang around. Go to roughtrade.com/club and sign up with the code CLUB101POD. That's CLUB101POD and claim money off the album of the month, English Teachers This Could Be Texas, today. This offer's available to UK residents only. Do you play in bands? I did for the longest time. And I wish that I knew that DistroKid was a thing. I don't even think it existed back then. DistroKid makes music distribution fun and easy with unlimited uploads, and artists keep 100% of your royalties and earnings. 1 million plus artists rely on DistroKid to get their music on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, TikTok, Tidal, Instagram, and all the major streaming services. When you get DistroKid, you can see a DistroKid bank and withdraw your earnings. You get notified when you've earned royalties and you can withdraw via the app. And you can even check your streaming stats on Spotify and Apple. Get 30% off your first year on DistroKid by going to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. 30% off for your first year. That's not bad. We know it's a tough world out there. Why don't you make it easier for yourself? And to get 30% off that free year as an artist, where you get 100% of your royalties and earnings, go to distrokid.com/VIP/101pod. All right, stay with me. I'll be right back after this.
Sephora stores are everywhere you are. So just pop in when you need a brown lip to match your 90s playlist, a confidence boost before your interview, or a last-minute gift for mom's birthday. There's always a Sephora near you. Just pop in. Use our store locator to find your local Sephora or Sephora at Kohl's.
This episode is brought to you by Bumble. So, you want to find someone you're compatible with, specifically someone who's ready for a serious connection, totally open to having kids in the future, is a tall, rock-climbing Libra, and loves rom-coms with vegan pizzas on Tuesdays just as much as you do. Bumble knows that you know exactly what's right for you. So whatever it is you're looking for, Bumble's features can help you find it. Date now on Bumble.
Hello and welcome to 101 Part-Time Jobs with me, Giles Bidder, where I speak to bands and artists about the journeys, the meanderings, the missteps, and all the side quests that have brought our favourite bands to be who and where they are today. Today's episode is a big one for me. When I was 15 or 16, someone shoved a flyer in my hand at school and said, "You should come to this gig this Saturday." I went to that show in Amersham, and that caught me on to a local band called Gallows, who had just released their first demo on a CDR. I jammed it on MySpace so loud, I tore my hair over it. I just loved it. I was jumping around in my bedroom listening to that. And I got to see them a few times, a couple of times in London and also at the Pioneer Club in St Albans, although unfortunately I didn't really get to see much of their set, which we'll hear about later. Around that time, Gallows went from being this punk rock curiosity to a band that was on the front pages of Kerrang and had a quadruple page spread in the magazine. And that had a profound impact on the way that I understood punk and music, and elevating something you created that you can share with the world. That feeling I've never lost. I talk a lot on this show about how I compare making music to building ramps and building tree houses, having fun with your mates and building projects. And really, the nucleus of that feeling, the fuel of it, comes from that time in my life. I swallowed something back then that hasn't left my body yet. And Frank Carter has got a big part to do with it. So speaking to Frank for this episode is a total pleasure, total joy. I got to ask him some questions that I've been ruminating, thinking about asking for years. And it's come at a great time because the Rattlesnakes are a really interesting band. We talk about how they're not a band just for punks or just for people into rock music or metal or any particular genre. Frank Carter and the Rattlesnakes is a band that really brings us into their whole universe. And that is something that I'm down with. Their new album, Dark Rainbow, is out on the 26th of January. That's just around the corner now. And their 2024 world tour is on sale. That starts in February. They're going around the UK, Europe, and then going to Australia, and then to the States in May. So you got enough chances to catch them. And those UK shows, I should say, they're 2 shows at the Roundhouse in February, which are going to be wild. Interesting band, wilding out, being themselves. I think that's very cool. And to hear some of Frank's stories here is something I've wanted to do for a long time. So cheers for listening to 101 Part-Time Jobs. If you like this podcast, if you like this episode, you can subscribe, you can leave a rating or a review. When you do that, when you leave a rating or a review, it's like your local coffee shop when they ask you. It massively helps. It comes up on Google. It means I can keep on getting more guests, more brilliant stories. That's what I'm here to do. Thank you for being along for the ride with me. A shout out to the sponsors, 2000 Trees Festival in Cheltenham, just a few hours away on the train from London. Their tickets are the cheapest right now than they'll ever be. If you know about 2000 Trees, you know it's a sick festival. They've always got incredible bands playing. They've only announced a handful of bands so far for next year, but it's a stellar lineup already. Gaslight Anthem, Manchester Orchestra, Boston Manor, Hot Mulligan, The Mysterines, Gouge Away. I'm a huge fan of that band, Gouge Away. If you haven't heard them, go and give them a jam now. From Florida, really nasty, hardcore, post-hardcore stuff. Teenage Wrist as well. 2000trees.co.uk is where you can get your tickets. They're the cheapest right now than they will be. And if you buy them before the end of the year, then you can get a full refund if you later find out that you can't go. 2000trees.co.uk. Okay, before we get into this chat, I've got Rebecca from Ampollo here. Ampollo is the first all-in-one app connecting a global community of musicians and bringing an all-in-one place to practice, record, and collaborate. Until now, practicing has been kind of lonely. There's been technical barriers. These are all things that Ampollo is working to make your life better for. Isn't that right, Rebecca? What's going on over there?
Interestingly, we've been having lots of conversations with students and teachers and universities and colleges, and there's this big push of people wanting to use it as part of their curriculum to accelerate learning and change the way that music is taught. You're able to talk to each other in real life within the same project. So forget about jumping back to WhatsApp and emails and things like that. I can watch back your performance and say, that bit was great, this bar needs a bit more practice. So we've been getting feedback that Ampollo is a total game changer for music education, and it's so much easier using this than using multiple apps and jumping around to communicate with each other. So it's a really exciting space.
Ampollo, get on it sooner than later. Right, man of the hour, here he is, of the Rattlesnakes, is Frank Carter. 101 part-time jobs. Yeah, that was my introduction to punk rock. Was going to shows in Amersham.
Oh wow! Okay.
At the Jubilee Hall, and then I forgot. I mean, I used to go Pioneer when I was, 7 years old to go skate with my mates.
Amazing.
And I remember one show that I went to go see you and Your Demise, and I remember being so buzzing for it. I was so excited to see Gallows. I remember getting like a CDR at that show, and Your Demise played. And what's the old singer of Your Demise called? The big chap, George
Noble, yeah.
He stage dived and landed on my head, and I remember that crack. I heard the crack.
Oh my god!
And it was good though, because it was a skate park like the Pioneer. It was like a youth centre, so I could go next door and put ice on it. And I think I missed most of your show. Those days got me really into playing bands, and really that's what I've been doing since. Not necessarily playing in bands, but writing about music and being interested in people. And I suppose, you know, I don't think it's too far out to say that I think I take rather than like a review approach, I take a bit of a more sociological approach, because I'm interested in people. I'm interested in the way that at some point in your life you think, okay, well, I'm going to do this art and I'm going to prioritize this over anything else. And, you know, in the British schooling system, you get to 15, 16, it's all about your GCSEs. It's all about career advisors. I mean, when I'm saying all that stuff, what does it make you think of? I mean, what was your situation growing up in Hemel Hempstead and being 15, 16 and having, you know, at that age, you're kind of thrusted into making decisions.
At 16, I went and worked in the Ovaltine factory in Kings Langley for 16 weeks across the summer,
Right.
doing shift work. And with that money, which was quite good money at the time for a 16-year-old, granted it was shift work, factory shift work, I took that money and I used to go every week to Watford and just buy as many records and CDs as I could, you know. So I had quite a crazy collection of music at that time. You know, some weeks I was spending like £100 on CDs, 150 quid on CDs, which was a lot of money back then. Like,
yeah.
And two things became really apparent. One was that I would never work shift work again. At no matter what the odds, I was going to work my ass off to have a career in art, in whatever that would be. And the other thing was that I fucking loved music. I loved music. Mm-hmm. You know, that carried me through. I had a CD Walkman, and that's what I would listen to on my way to work. Like 5 a.m, get there to start my shift at 6, and then the next week I'd be working from 2 till 10. So it's like it was kind of chaos, man. But that's what kickstarted my drive and my ambition. Was like, this work isn't for me. I don't want to, like, it, you know, it's valuable work, but I just was like, I need more freedom and I want to do something creative. So yeah, that was 16 for me.
What records were those? Was it like rock stuff, like hardcore?
It was, yeah, mostly rock and metal. Everything, like, there was a window of time where I bought everything that Roadrunner Records put out. You know, Ross Robinson was like, I considered him to be a very important person in music. Same with Rick Rubin when he was making those System of a Down records. And one particularly that like sat with me was Everything You Ever Wanted to Know About Silence by Glassjaw. That record really did change things for me. Like I had heard, you know, post hardcore records, and I'd listened to sort of Quicksand and Fugazi, and I'd listened to those bands and what they were doing. And Glassjaw had this element of like real delicacy and then absolute vitriol, like at a pace that felt kind of like Runaway. And there was no real, every time you thought a hook was coming, you got a left hook. So, you know, like you got a jab or whatever. And it was just an amazing way of, I really, Dal Palumbo's vocals and his lyrics really resonated with me. And so that was, that was a bit later than that, but definitely the surge into that was like everything from Soulfly to, you know, through to Korn, right through to Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam. The ones that really made an impact was like Soundgarden, Deftones. That was like, I remember one time walking into there and finding some Japanese pressing of B-sides and rarities by the Deftones, and putting that on. Man, it's just like the most chaotic, feedback-driven, like snippets from gigs. There's one moment where they stop the show because a stage driver's lost his shoe and Chino throws it back, and you just hear all of that, and you can hear just how live it is. So that was amazing.
There's something about, I mean, even that like scenario of Gino Marino picking up a shoe and throwing it back. There's community about that. There's something inviting. I'm going to be really biased because I didn't grow up on electronic music or hip hop or rap. I grew up on rock and punk. There's something about rock that if you're a fan of rock music, you're kind of more than likely at some point in your life to pick up a guitar, to start playing drums, and to be part of it. And I'm really interested now. Like as I get older, I'm fascinated by that idea that, you know, we put people on pedestals and we put people on big stages, but yet it's also an inviting culture for you, if you're a ticket holder or a record buyer, to get involved yourself.
Yeah, there's nothing quite like it. I've talked about it in detail about how rock and roll is this sort of forever muse of other industry, other art, even other genres of music, you know, like and it's really nice to see that at this age, like to see how that's trickled down into different genres and generations, you know. But back when I was growing up, listening to rock was like a fucking statement. Like if you listen to rock, like there was a high probability you wouldn't get beaten up at least once on the weekend. Do you know what I mean?
Well, this is it. It was Grebos and Chavs. That was the height of it.
It was it was this ongoing war, especially in Hertfordshire, for many, many years. We had such an amazing, you talk about community, we had such an amazing community of rock, like from as vast from the Pioneer all the way across to the NAMM shows that happen at the Watford Rugby Club, you know, that Mikey from Six used to put on. And that's in fact where I met Lags and started, you know, we started talking about Gallows. He was playing in a punk band called My Dad Joe. And
and you were in Goodnight Sweetheart?
Yeah.
I remember that.
I do, yeah.
I mean, looking back now at that Gallows, I mean, how do you feel about talking about Gallows now?
They're fun. It's fun memories. Like it was my first foray into professional music, you know?
Yeah.
A lot of it felt unprofessional, you know, it felt like chaos. I look back on it now and I can, with fondness for what it led to, and a little bit of sadness of what it was in the time, you know, like I was very lost, and I didn't really know how to direct any of that. So a lot of it became, you know, it carried an incendiary rage with me, that I've only really come to learn recently was very self-destructive, you know. So a lot of self-harm happening in that, that I was lauded for, celebrated, you know. So
you're getting rewarded for something that can be dangerous, that can be personally destructive. That's an interesting place. That
was explicitly personally dangerous and personally damaging. Do you know what I mean? Like I remember walking off stages and knowing that like a towel was waiting for me to clean up whatever blood I was covered in. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or I remember like our crew like joking about like, not as much blood as yesterday, Frank. Like it's like, you know, that's just kind of wild. If I witnessed that happening now, I would definitely step in and be like, I know you're not okay. It's not even not a question. Are you okay? Is not the question. It's like, I know you're not okay. So like, sit with me, talk to me about what's going on, and understand that this is a performance, and there's levels to this. Do you know what I mean? Because also it's valid. You know, that suffering is valid, but we are not like, that's not my identity. And it took me a long time to come to terms with that. I thought that was my identity for a long time, you know?
And that was physical destruction as well as emotional. I mean, on stage, absolutely, bleeding everywhere. And it was it also in your life, in your personal life, in your friendships, your relationships, family?
Less so off stage. But then obviously you're picking up the pieces between gigs of, you know, broken bones and fucking concussions and stitches and the lot, you know? So it's like, I say no, not in my personal life, but then obviously that negates my family's experience of it all. And that's really unfair. I can't do that to them because obviously they all had an experience in that as like spectators, and how damaging it was to them. You know, I know that they were really, really concerned for me for a long time. So
you're close with your family, aren't you?
I am. Yeah. We're really tight. Yeah.
That's a great way to live.
I'm at my mum's right now. I'm at my mum's outside. Yeah. When
you signed to, was it Warner or Universal Gallows?
Yeah, it was Warner Bros.
How much of a life-changing thing for you? You know, looking back, you mentioned, you know, how Gallows is after that. It put you in a place where you could play music and you could be an artist. What was the process of you learning? At some point, you're like, okay, this is aggressive music on stage, but if I can use my head as well as my heart, I can make this something special and sustainable. Because I guess that's sort of like the ideal, right?
Sadly, I never got to that point in Gallows. I knew it was unsustainable, because I had set a precedent early on that was just that couldn't drop from. So I only actually really learned that kind of recently within Rattlesnakes, and I'm really, really grateful for that. Like I'm so proud of what we've achieved, and now the case is about using your head as much as your heart, and making sure the passion doesn't turn to rage, and ensuring that there's an important point for all of it, you know, along the way.
That comes across in the music, you know. I mean, at first with Pure Love, when those first couple of singles, it was like, yeah, this is rock and roll. It's got a lot of heart in it, didn't it?
Yeah, man, it's what it's all about. Like we've been trying to build a project that is true to us, true to our authentic selves, but within that, you have to learn what your authentic self is along the way, and there has to be room for change and growth, and it's that's I think my favorite thing is how exciting that is.
Starting something, letting it flourish, and as it becomes new things, staying on top of that. I mean, you know, 101 part-time jobs, as much as I started this speaking to mates bands who are coming off tour and working all kinds, it's about speaking to people like you who are doing it full-time and have done it full-time for a number of years, because there's 101 part-time jobs in doing that, isn't there? Personal growth, and waking up and doing your morning notes or whatever gets you in the mood. What if there's a few things, or even just one thing that gets you in the mood for it, and that, you know, it might be an iced coffee or it might be a run. What is that place for you when you find yourself getting elevated, getting buzzing about writing and creating?
Yeah, if, like the hours between 4 and 5 a.m. If I can wake up at that point, that is when I'm like, and I spend a lot of time. I go through waves where I like get into a good routine with it, and then I fall out slightly. I'm creeping up on one now. I can feel. I keep waking up earlier and earlier, and I'm like, oh fuck, here we go again.
4 is early, man. Like
it is.
6 is early.
Yeah,
5 is another thing.
Well, 6 is early, but by the time you got to work, like the day, you know, you're running out of the morning. Like 4 a.m., you can be at work before anyone else has woken up, and you know, I can do like hours of writing or drawing or painting or singing before most people have had that first coffee. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Before they've done their thing that kickstarts their day. I used to like waking up at 4:30 and going for an hour run, and then being in the studio at 5:30 to like start working and start writing and stuff. And then I'd work all the way up till like 10 a.m. when I'd do a tattoo. And then at lunchtime, I'd go and do like interviews, or I'd head to the studio with Dean and we'd write for a few hours. And then I'd be home by 3 or 4 o'clock. That's my dream, man. I need, what I've learned is I need that solitude, that isolated hours. You know, there's an amazing artist who once coined this term that if you want one good hour of painting in the studio, you need 4 hours uninterrupted. And I think that is just like that kind of goes for everything creative, you know? Yeah,
I mean, what an amazing routine. My mum writes books. She writes fiction, and she wakes up so early in the morning, swims in the sea. I always warn her, I'm like, Mum, there's actual shit in the sea. You can't do that these days. but she's got that thing, and you know that I think creating that discipline. You live in an autonomy zone. You are an autonomy zone.
Yeah, and that's been autonomy is like one of my favorite words. Like I've been trying to find more of that in myself and my routine, my discipline, and my writing over the past few years, because I guess a lot of it felt like it required other people or partners or, you know, creative partners to be around to work with. So it's been a real joy to like find something that works for me. And it's just an outpouring. I try and wake up every morning early, right before the day is done. You know, prime example is this morning, we've been kicking around ideas for a new video, and I had sent one to Dean by 6:30 this morning. Great. And he woke up like, what the hell, man? What are you on?
Well, no one else is going to do it for you, are they?
No, they're not, no.
Tattooing, you've as long as I've, you know, going back to, you know, Gallows years, I mean, as long as I've known about you and listened to your bands, you've been a tattooist, or you know, you've done tattoos, and you've you know, following you on socials, you know, you get to know someone like that, and I saw how much you're into sneakers, and I saw how much you're into tattoos. Tattoos as art. I mean, I don't know much about tattoos. I've got quite a lot on me, sort of stick and pokes and bits and bobs. I would like to at some point kind of get into the history and the legacy of tattoos. And I guess one word that really comes big for me when thinking about tattoos is respect. And I think, you know, respect for your art, respect for your body, respect for, you know, the feeling and the self-expression. How can you chart your journey?
Yeah, I mean, I can't. Charting a journey is difficult because you've got to be taking that along the way. You know, it's been quite a long time. Yeah. But I know that for sure, like I definitely have the best relationship with. I have the most respect for it now that I've ever had, and that's post owning a tattoo shop. And you know, I'm coming up to, in 2025, that'll be 20 years of tattooing, 2 decades of tattooing. You know. But I've worked every day this week tattooing in the shop, clients, and it's a real gift to be able to connect with your fans like that, to welcome them into your own space. That's your, you know, it used to be my tattoo shop. Now it's my private studio. I just go there in the morning, make art, write, do one tattoo, and then come home and do interviews and stuff. And it's like, connection is the word for me. You know, it's a different way of connecting people with tattooing, and I've always cherished it. It's always been very important to me, but I feel like now I respect it more than I ever have. You know, and particularly the history of it. So, which is something that I was quite involved with for a long time. Like in the early days of Gallows, when I was traveling the world quite a lot, I had access to, you know, people's collections when they were selling them, and I, you know, became known as a bit of a collector. So I've got quite an amazing, like, museum archive of some of the greats, you know, loads of original drawings from Sailor Jerry and some of the best tattooers in the world. Like, I've got sheets of theirs just like up on the walls. It's nice, man.
Thinking about all that and having your discipline, having your routine, having, you know, your autonomous culture that you've built for yourself, were you ever going to do anything else? Was there ever a time that you thought of dropping what you're doing or doing something else? I guess, you know, in my experience, that would be sort of succumbing to other pressures in life, you know, financial or geographical, relationships, family. Have you had to have a hard head to keep going?
I quit Gallows to be a tattooer before we got our first record deal. So I always thought like tattooing was what I wanted to do. When they came to me and said, look, we've been offered this deal, but they want you to sing on it, I went to my boss and said, look, I'm going to go and do this. He's like, yeah, crack on. the rest is history. You know, like I went back and tattooed there, but only ever temporarily. I've had a few moments that have been like, you know, definitely when Gallows finished, I jumped straight into Pure Love, and that was a much harder journey in music. When Pure Love finished, I didn't believe I had anything left in music for me. I thought that my career was done. I focused heavily on tattooing and poured a lot of energy into it. When Rattlesnakes picked up, and then you know, we were 3 albums in and about to start working on our 4th, and we were getting to this moment where I had an opportunity to get my own shop. I got it. I signed the lease 2 weeks before a global pandemic. You know, I signed the lease to that shop March 2020, and we were shut 2 weeks later. And I think the shop was amazing. You know, a lot of young tattooers came through. They learned their trade there. They honed their skills. They made client bases, and they all went on to open their own shops.
Nice.
Really, you know, really successful shops. In the area, no, but they're all like really wonderful people, and I made a lot of friends there. So for me, what I learned though is that I'm a great tattooer. I'm not a good manager. Yeah, so I'm an artist, and I need the freedom to create. So I'm very excited to have a studio space back, and to that's what I'm most looking forward to next year, is this autonomous discipline that I've been slowly crafting over this year. And I'm really looking forward to like kind of reaping the rewards of consistency from that next year. You know, that's I'm very excited about waking up early in the morning, going for my run down the canal, making a coffee, going to the studio, you know, just those things.
There's something about working hard, you know, almost kind of scratching around in your hole, doing that thing. For me, it's here. You know, I fucking love editing these podcasts. Otherwise, somehow, you know, and just like sitting in front of the computer, I feel like I'm doing something, you know, and having that feeling of doing something when you're scratching away at that hole and you're carving out. It's like chipping away at a fucking iceberg sometimes. Like things do happen in the background, and that's something I really like about doing something you believe in. There's going to have these little sort of dividends, these little knock-on effects of people, you know, you get invited to this or that, or, you know, you get that job, this job, temporary bits and bobs. And I'm like, yeah, fucking come on, give it. You know, that life has a funny way of doing that.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, all of this is just energy. You know, the universe is just energy. And it's really nice when you see the energy that is coming back to you. You recognize where that's come from, you know, and you can see the trail back to yourself of like the hours that you put in 2 months ago, or the week that you spent where you really were focused, and because of that you got, you know, a certain project came together, and you know, or in fact like the energies you have when you meet the right creative partner and you really bond over stuff, and suddenly you got all this time to make. So for me, that's my favorite part about it. I'm lucky. When you talk about 101 jobs, I'm really, really lucky because of the work I did very early on. I made certain that I would love whatever job it was that I went to every day. Yeah. And because I've worked in music and in tattooing at the same time for the same amount of years, I lean on each one when I need a break, you know? So It feels as though like I'm always present in whatever I'm doing. I never feel bored of going to tattoo. I never get to the point where I'm like, oh, I can't fucking do this today. Equally, I don't get to the point where I'm like, I do not want to go and play a gig, you know? Like I get stressed, and I've had plenty of anxiety in the past, and that's led to, you know, plenty of wrong choices. But now I can safely say today, I'm so grateful for the 2 jobs that I have, and everything else that brings up. You know, earlier this year we did a collaboration with P&Co, and was able to make like a load of branded clothes for them, which was so much fucking fun. You know, like I love fashion, and I've always been really interested in that, and to see that come together and the amount of work that came out of the studio, it's just lovely to watch that come together, and to be present enough to be grateful for it, you know. Like that was something that I think people miss along the way, like so stressed about what it is they're doing and is it a success or not. And it's like the success is you. Like the fact that you're here, of the fucking million sperm,
yeah,
it was you. Do you know what I mean? And it's like you've arrived now, and you are already a success, and everything you make and leave in this world is a success of its own, you know, determination. And I feel just grateful, man. I'm blessed at the life I have.
Talking about collaborators and finding people that you buzz off and you have this special connection, Dean in the Rattlesnakes, he played in bands before, didn't he? Sort of around the area, not too far from Watford as well, in Garden City. He's sort of from, isn't it? When you met each other, because you know Frank Carter and the Rattlesnakes, it's you guys, it's you two in the photos. You kind of, you know, you learn to know the band and the rhythm section as when you, but you two are in the photos. You two are the people you see and you read interviews with. That connect, is that because of the connection that you have? I mean, you talked earlier. I mean, it goes with autonomy, right? And when you're working with more than one or any other people, maybe it's hard to be the kind of fuel of a project and keep it pure.
When I stopped working in Gallows, you know, the partnership in Gallows was me and Laurent. You know, me and Lags. We wrote all the songs together. And then to an extent, my brother had a say in that as well. You know, me and my brother would write songs, but just purely situationally. You know, between tours, we were living together, and so when I left Gallows, I started working with Jim Carroll on Pure Love, and it just worked really, really well. It was just there was no big decisions. There was no like trying to find loads of people to be involved. It was more expensive, sure, because we had to pay a band every time we wanted to do anything, but it worked, you know. And then when I got into Rattlesnakes, Dean and I had been working on some songs for a little while, for like just for fun to write, you know, and it just made so much sense. We were talking about it this morning. It's 9 years that we've been writing together, you know, and as Rattlesnakes, 9 years as Rattlesnakes.
That's a relationship. That's a proper relationship.
Yeah, longest relationship I've ever been in. You know, like it's crazy. And so things change and things grow, but what we have is this unspoken bond where we can communicate. It's intuitive at this point. You know, we know so well what each other likes and doesn't like, and we know how. And the important part of that is we know how to challenge that. So when we get into the studio to work, whether it's on the art, the videos, or the music, or even the lyrics to some extent, it's so much can happen in such a short space of time because we already know, you know. And that bond is when you find that with someone, it's incredibly important to nurture it.
It's amazing to see Rattlesnakes play these huge venues. A lot of people come to see you play. And though it feels to me, you know, you know my background, but it feels from my point of view, it's like there's the punks, there's the younger, there's the Gen Zs, there's the older rock fans. For me, that's the beautiful thing about Rattlesnakes, is that it really is a full mix. There's no one pushing you away from it. It doesn't feel like internal. It feels like welcoming people with open arms. Yeah, I mean, have you seen that?
We've prided ourselves on that. Yeah, we've always been really proud of the fact that you could go and see Rattlesnakes with your mum or your dad or your grandparents or your kids. And it just makes sense. There's something for everyone there across all ages. Like they can appreciate, you know, they can appreciate the show if they don't appreciate the energy, you know, and they can appreciate the musicality as much as the performance. And that came real true at Alexandra Palace.
Yeah.
It's hard not to notice that in action. That was a big gig.
you see people's faces and you see how people look different. People at different ages.
I mean, yeah, that's a lot of faces. So, it was from up on that stage. It was a trip. It was a real trip to see it. Like, and I just remember feeling very overwhelmed, but overwhelmed with joy. You know, it was just a really, really defining moment of my life. It was amazing.
Hey, it's Kaylee Cuoco for Priceline. Ready to go to your happy place for a happy price? Well, why didn't you say so? Just download the Priceline app right now and save up to 60% on hotels. So whether it's Cousin Kevin's Kazoo Concert in Kansas City, go Kevin, or Becky's Bachelorette Bash in Bermuda, you never have to miss a trip ever again. So download the Priceline app today. Your savings are waiting.
Go to your happy place for a happy price. Go to your happy price, Priceline.
You're always pushing it forward. The tracks on Dark Rainbow sound like, you know, a big step. I'm trying not to fall into any kind of music journalist tropes there of, you know, of taking step forwards and progression and all that stuff. But it's true. You know, it is true. Is that? Do you think a big part of that is because, I mean, you take in culture. You know, the world around you is always changing. Do you think, are you the kind of person that can bring in the way the world around you is always changing, bring in what you're learning into what you're doing in the present?
I think that's one of my skills. Yeah, is being able to put into words, you know, complex emotional problems that aren't alien to us. You know, they're a lot of us go through that have similar problems, if not the same exact problem. My skill is just being able to write about it in an eloquent and simple way that people can understand, so it resonates with them. And they, you know, so often people come up to me and they say to me, like, I feel like you wrote this song about me, you know, and they'll explain why. They'll you know, deconstruct sentences in songs and where that relates to their life. And I'm just there like, yeah, fucking, you're right, it is for you, you know, because it is, you know, the same way that it is for me. And, you know, obviously Dean and I, we have this wonderful moment where we finish a record and it's ours for just a little while, and then it's released, and then it's everyone's. It's kind of no longer ours, but it's still our duty to perform it, you know. And that's man, as an artist, that's just such a gift.
In that time, just before the record's released, but you've got it mastered, you got the MP3s, you got the Dropbox. Will you jam it? Will you put it loud on headphones?
Yeah, I fucking listen to it all the time. I listen to it to death, because I'm like, with this record especially, I put it on and I'm like, I cannot believe that's me in places, you know. It surprised me, you know. And the album was about, you know, specifically about trying to reach myself, you know, and trying to love myself and trying to find room for me in not only in the world, but in my own life, in my own world, and how I could be kinder to myself and have more compassion towards me. And it was really, I managed to make that happen. And I listen back to it now and I can hear the ways that I'm trying, and that's enough. And that's you know, it's a great kindness to myself to listen to that record. Like, it really is. And that people might not understand that, but like, a lot of people have asked me, what is the album about? And I always say it's a mirror, you know, like, whatever you need it to be about, it's about. But ultimately it's about taking a long, hard look at yourself and still loving yourself at the end of it. Still, no matter what you see, understanding that at the bottom of all of this, the only person that ever truly can love you is you. That's the only one that matters, because if you don't care about yourself, you'll never let anyone else in. You'll never be able to care truly for anybody else. It'll all come from the wrong place. So that's what the record's about to me, is like, is being compassionate towards yourself so that you can have that for others.
I feel that. I've been working on that myself recently. I've been thinking a lot about how over the years I'll think about someone else and I'll be thinking about the way they think. And I haven't been thinking about the way I think.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Isn't that mad?
Yeah, it's so complicated, and we do that all the time. We get lost in the labyrinth of other people's thoughts and feelings, so much so that we don't realise that they're doing that as well. they ain't worried about, they're so worried about everything else. Like, they're not, like, we need to just care about ourselves. That's the only thing that matters.
There's one good upside from all of that, which is when you wake up in the morning and you think, oh fuck, did I say something stupid last night? Did I make a bad joke that didn't land? Everyone's thinking the same thing about themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the best reason to get rid of that feeling.
It's like spiders, you know. They're more scared of you than you are of them. That's people too.
That's funny. Yeah. Hey Frank, thanks so much for this. I've really enjoyed this. Cheers for your time.
Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure, man. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. Look, I just want to ask you one more question. And I often ask people what their mistakes were at work or their work gaffes, and, you know, anything from sort of first day, you know, being goofy or whatever, you know, saying the wrong things to the wrong person.
I'll tell you, the one that's just popped in my head is one that I was relaying to someone not long ago. I used to work at a shop called Thrift Street Tattoo, in Soho, and on one of my first days there, might have been my first day, I'd mopped the whole floor, and it was like 5 minutes before the shop opened, and Lau Hardy came in, who's like an amazing old school tattooer, a proper old boy, and he was leaning on the counter, and he just learned who I was and was chewing me out, you know, and was like, well, I look forward to seeing what you do, young man, and all that. And I was feeling so proud, and I leant on the bucket and it just tipped all over the floor. I was poured dirty water all over the fucking floor that I just washed. So that was probably my biggest gaffe in the Tat Shack, yeah.
What's that Miles Davis quote? There's no such thing as mistakes, it's about what you do next.
Yeah, well, what I did next was mop the fucking floor.
So there he was, Frank Carter. I think we got along quite well. Thank you so much. I hope you got something out of that as well. If you did, make sure you subscribe to the show, leave a rating or a review. That stuff helps me massively and means I can keep on bringing on these incredible guests like Frank. I've got some amazing ones in the pipeline, and even just this week, we got Jem from Speed, the incredible Australian hardcore band. That's on Thursday, and on Friday we got Benny from the Gaslight Anthem. So if you'd like to get notified as soon as those get released, make sure you click the subscribe button. Also, you can sign up to the newsletter at 101parttimejobs.com, and Pod Bible are currently running their Listener Choice Awards. You can type in on the final section, the Oh My Pod section, type in 101 part-time jobs there, and hopefully we'll have a shoe in for getting somewhere with that. And if we win, I promise that I'll be making some offerings. All right, head to podbiblemag.com. You can make your selections. You can type in 101 part-time jobs on that final section that's titled Oh My Pod. Please do that. That'd be a massive help. Thank you, and see you again soon.
Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather, now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
VGW Group. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.